Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a historic abandoned hospital for TB patients used back in the 1920s. Some say it's haunted. We love old buildings and history, so that's why we're here. Let's get into it. Hey guys, today we're at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. This used to be a big hospital for tuberculosis patients. We're gonna take a historical tour today. We're gonna take you guys with us. This beautiful Tudor Gothic style architecture is amazing to see. It was built specifically as a hospital for tuberculosis. It was designed with their approach to curing TB, which was protein-rich meals, fresh air, sunlight, and rest. The building is now on the Register of Historic Places. If death had an address, it would be Waverly Hills. So many people died here. Records were kept in downtown Louisville and were destroyed in the 1937 flood, so we don't have a specific number of deaths to report, but many deaths and horrific things happened here at Waverly Hills. During the 1800s and early 1900s, America was ravaged by a deadly disease known as the White Death or tuberculosis. Each year, there's a haunted house here at Waverly Hills, and these coffins are used during that event. This large room where we signed in for our historical tour was once the dining room when this was the sanatorium. It's where families gathered to eat their meals together. They had cabinets with original things left from the sanatorium that you could see. At one time, there were whole families here at the sanatorium, so mealtime together was very important because the men were on one floor, the women on another, and the children and infants had their own wing of the sanatorium. And what we're looking at now, this large room, was once the kitchen where they prepped all the meals for the sanatorium. That was one of their things, is they wanted to feed the patients protein-rich meals, which they felt would help them beat tuberculosis. Before our tour began, we were allowed to walk around. We weren't allowed to video the entire tour because the lady said that would not be fair to those who purchased the tour. So we will show you bits and pieces of our tour today. Each floor of the hospital had a solarium, and this is a big room where people would gather, visitors who came to see patients, etc. And this particular solarium was also used as a chapel. We were shown a picture of this window with a face in it that someone had taken while they were there.
And this building was completed in late October of 1926. Guess how they celebrated the opening of this building? Our day.
These are the porches on the back side of the hospital that was designed specifically to wheel patients out on the open air balcony so they could get fresh air and sunlight.
I took those photos back. So, Waverly Hills, remember I said they focused on three main treatments, and one of them was that fresh air. Do you see how the back of Waverly Hills right here is shaped like a bat wing? This is actually the back of the building. They did that on purpose because it.
Our tour guide told us about two sisters that were patients here. One survived TB, the other did not. We'll show you their room in a moment.
Lucky sister. She came here for about a year, and if you know anything about tuberculosis, you know that once you have it, it's in your body forever. You don't get rid of it. But it can be dormant.
This is the sisters' room where they stayed when they were there at the hospital. This is not the original furniture, however. One of the sisters was let out of the hospital. She was married, and while out of the hospital, she became pregnant. When it was time for the baby to be born, they took her to Louisville, so she had the baby. She was never allowed to hold the baby or touch the baby, and her husband would come on the property here at the hospital and lift the baby up so that she could see the child. She never got to hold her own child, and she died at the age of 28 here in the sanatorium. Because the patients had to share bathrooms and showers at the hospital, the women had one floor, the men had another, and then children had special wings in the floors. So whole families were there sometimes, and the only time they got to see each other was when they went to eat meals. Mealtime was so very important at the sanatorium because that is the only time that families were allowed to see one another. As we walked the hallways, we could just imagine what it was like here. This place was full of patients, and they all were suffering from tuberculosis. Since TB was an airborne disease, they wanted to build this special hospital to separate the patients from the general public. It wasn't until the discovery of antibiotics until they were able to get tuberculosis under control, but many, many deaths preceded this. We were told that Waverly Hills was not just a hospital, it was a whole community. On the Waverly Hills campus, doctors lived, the nurses lived, different people who took care of the patients all lived on the property because it was so necessary to keep the TB patients separated from the general public. Upon the discovery of streptomycin in 1943, that's what helped them get tuberculosis under control. And after that, they had no need for a TB hospital. A homeless man and his dog were found inside this elevator. They had both been killed. Once this hospital ceased to be needed for TB patients, it was used as a mental health hospital. There are lots of horror stories about patients who were chained to beds and other horrible things that happened here in this place. None of the elevators work in the building anymore, so if you take this tour, you'll walk up and down a lot of stairs. She then took us up to the 4th floor. If you were a patient, you did not want to go there. That is the operating room with the original light hanging from the ceiling and where they watched the x-rays on the wall. It was all so ominous. If you were taken there, that meant they had lost all hope that you were going to get better. They would put you in the operating room and use ether as your sedative, and then they would take out 4 ribs and deflate your lungs. And their theory was that that would give your lungs a chance to rest and heal. So that's how they treated you, and you did not want to go on the 4th floor. This is where they kept the ether in this stainless thing. And we also show you the autoclave where they sterilized all the instruments. And there I am with the autoclave. This was crazy to see in person. These areas on the porch that stuck out were used as nurses' stations because they didn't have call buttons back then, and the nurses could see the patients up and down the hallway. Then we were taken to the 5th floor. There's lots of stories about the 5th floor.
Bathrooms. We had a medicine room and a living room right here. This is one of 3 sets of elevators here at Waverly Hills.
It was just outside this elevator in front of room 502 where a nurse hanged herself. She was single and pregnant, and back then it was quite a disgrace. And so they found her right outside the elevator. We even heard stories about nurses who jumped out the window. I guess dealing with all of the death was just more than they could take. There are a lot of paranormal investigators and ghost hunters that visit this place, and many even spend the night. Our tour guide said the Louisville SWAT team spent the night but was ran out before midnight, terrified. So stay at your own risk. You have to pay to do this. We're not into that sort of thing. We love history, and so that's why we love this place. We love old buildings, and it's just so cool to see and imagine how it used to be. We were able to walk out on the roof there on the 5th floor and look at that view. It is absolutely breathtaking. Then we walked down flight after flight after flight of stairs until we made our way down into what was the main lobby of the hospital. It was quite dark down in the main lobby. They had old pictures hanging on the wall. It was quite ominous looking, and this was the main chandelier as you walked in the door. They had since painted a picture of the nurse that hanged herself, and on the other side, someone had painted Waverly Hills. I'm not really sure when those were painted on there, but then we went outside and saw the main entrance of Waverly Hills. If you were a patient in this hospital, this is how you would have entered into the building. And once you got in, they would take you immediately to get a chest x-ray. Then we made our way down to see the morgue. In the morgue, it was only set up for 3 people. So in the height of the tuberculosis outbreak, this was not nearly large enough for the hospital. As we made our way into the morgue, they had the body tables. The one on the right is one of the original body tables they used there in the morgue. Our tour guide told us about people hearing voices in empty rooms and apparitions caught on camera, and the recording devices, along with odd smells and some unexplained physical sensations. This is the body cabinet where they would slide the bodies into to keep them. And like I said, it was set up for 3 bodies. And during the height of the tuberculosis pandemic, it was not nearly enough. They needed hundreds. And so that's where the body chute comes in. We went down to see the infamous body chute. As we made our way to the body chute, someone had painted this wall, I guess to show all the hundreds of bodies that actually came through this place. The body chute was originally used to get supplies in and out of the hospital, but during the height of the pandemic, when there were so many deaths, they used the body chute to get all of the dead bodies out of the hospital without taking them by the patients. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. She called it an orb. There was actually nothing down there. But if you look from the bottom to the top, something goes up very quickly. Not sure what that is. These are pictures taken from another camera, and you can definitely see lights where there should be none. There should be nothing down there, but you can see something. The spirit world is very real, but we don't mess around with these spirits. The only spirit we entertain is the Holy Spirit. The bodies were taken down into the chute and out to the nearby railroad tracks, where they were put aboard the train and taken to various parts of the country wherever the people were from.
Oh, this is
electroshock therapy right here.
When Waverly was used as a mental health hospital, this is where they took the patients for electroshock therapy. Can you even imagine? We exited our tour into the gift shop where we were greeted by this guy. In the gift shop, you could buy all sorts of t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and postcards, all kind of novelties from Waverly Hills.
messed up.
You may have heard this, but Zoltar is here to tell you you can believe it. Age is simply a matter of mind. If you don't mind, then my friend, it doesn't matter. So go on, be carefree like a little baby. But first, give Zoltar a little money, and I will give you a fortune.
We survived Waverly Hills. Before Waverly closed in the early 1960s, it was also used as an elder care facility. If you love history and you love old buildings, we highly recommend taking the historic tour of Waverly Hills. If you would like to see more of our videos, click the video that just popped up on your screen.